Sorry, I'm putting my feet up. I had
No, go.
plantar fascia.
Yeah.
I did both on Friday.
You got the surgery?
Yeah.
Well, tell me how it is.
Go for it. Do you need it?
For 20 years.
Yeah.
This is Chad Smith. It's November 6th, 2023. I know that because it's my daughter's 18th birthday today. She's
Happy
an adult
birthday.
now,
Adult.
my firstborn. So anyway, I'd like to call the Parks Commission meeting to order. We'll start with a roll call.
Nicole Marisi?
Melissa Morrow.
Chad Smith.
Don Hudson.
Mary Elizabeth Kofer.
Victoria Johnson.
Awesome. Let's go to public comments. Citizens wishing to address the Park Commission for items not on the agenda will be received at this time. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody who wants to speak on matters outside the agenda? If not, you can wait till we call that item to the agenda. We'll go to number 2, discussion and possible action on the minutes from the October 2nd, 2023 Park Commission meeting.
Motion
Anybody?
to approve?
Yeah, I'll second that. Anybody opposed? Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sounds like those are approved. Update from Western Hills Little League and Western Hills Girls Softball. I don't see Steve here. I think everything's buzzing right along, and I think we're fine, but if anybody has any comments about baseball or softball, let me know. Agenda item number 4 is discussion and possible action regarding quarterly park walkthroughs.
Oh, he did. He's online. Steve's on Zoom.
Oh, sorry. Steve, did you have anything to add?
You're on mute.
You're on mute, buddy.
I think he means everything's great.
Can anyone read lips? Anybody with sign language?
I like that.
Everything's great.
Thumbs up.
He wants City Park Commission to get a raise.
Our salaries need to be doubled.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, I got a thumbs up from Steve, so I think we're good. Steve, if you want to come online or whatever and update us, you can. I think we're on quarterly park walkthroughs. This might have been a Lori item.
Did we add this in here? Did this come from last meeting?
I would like to discuss this.
She asked.
Yeah, bring it on.
Okay, so this is something that we used to do, and I think people felt like there really wasn't much follow-through on these, and I think it's actually on us. If we're going to do these, I don't think that it's fair to staff to just give them a piece of paper, tell them what needs to be done, and walk away. I think we need to have more follow-through. It's our responsibility. So, and I don't think that we need to wait for quarterly to do this. I think if we want to serve on Park Commission, we need to love our park enough to just come down here and walk through the park. So that's just my opinion. If we want to go ahead and do scheduled walkthroughs, that's great. But I think whatever we do, we need to follow through ourselves. And make sure that these things get done.
So the result of these walkthroughs would be a list, kind of like we used to do,
Yes.
of items that need attention?
Well, that's what's been done in the past.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to do it other than write things down. And then we can submit that list. But then I think it behooves us to follow through, see how this is being done. What can we do to help?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think just saying, give staff something to do and not be responsible for it at all is not really fair.
Okay.
So I think that Ashley sent us an update from sort of that list. I don't know if anyone else read
Mhm.
it, but so it definitely made me feel better because I was like, okay, this is being done with, this is being booted to over here, whatever. So I do think that's really important. And I think what we said was also the idea would be that Izzy might come when we did the quarterly to the next park commission meeting.
Oh.
so that we could all make sure we were on the same page. And basically, he would just either say, this is where we are, or, and Izzy, Ashley, whoever else needs to
Is
answer
that piling too much on Izzy's plate to
I don't
ask
think
him
so.
to sit?
He may not always make those meetings, and
Yeah.
if it's something that he can't make, he can always pass on the information to us. I think
know
it's
they're
just
busy.
a way to, keep track of what's been done. And I have an updated sign-up sheet for the upcoming meetings, so we'll go ahead and get that up here. I think maybe a lot of the confusion has been, we haven't always been making sure they were happening. We kind of put it on the park commission and said, if you signed up, or if, someone didn't sign up, we weren't gonna call around and try to get, additional people to sign up for that.
I don't think that's your responsibility to see that we signed up. I think that's, we need to take that responsibility.
Sure. So we have I'll print a hard copy here. Everyone can sign up, or we
Perfect.
can email it out, and that way everybody will know when. And I like that idea. Just follow up with that document with the information. I just do want to understand the difference between the maintenance things and the longer term projects. Talk with Izzy a little bit today about it, and I think it's a little bit more is he would need a directive for a big project. So if it was something that really needs some, serious attention, a bigger, more expensive project, that would need to go through some other channel.
I feel like
discussion
we
by
should
the
have
park
two different
commission.
buckets, maintenance and capital improvements.
Agreed.
And just bifurcate them completely.
Mhm.
And capital improvements require much different process than Izzy's maintenance
Sure.
stuff.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So those kind of things, I think once we notice those, I think that would be good to say, okay, this is one of those bigger projects. If you'd like to put it on an agenda, please feel free to. And then on the maintenance side, if there's ever anything, you don't have to wait till a walkthrough. If there's a broken sprinkler head, or if there's something, just call us up here at City Hall. It's not as easy to, reach out to someone who's out in the field, Public Works, because they're, doing a whole bunch of things, getting pulled in different directions. But if you let us know here at City Hall, we can make sure that gets on their radar soon.
And I was thinking, really, Izzy would probably only come twice a year. Like, it'd really just be almost like a check-in, so he knows what we're doing.
Mhm.
We want to work well with him, understand what he's doing.
Sure.
He can just kind of give us an update.
And I think that if we do this, and y'all can just kind of give us feedback, if staff can give us feedback on the list that we turn in, that's sufficient.
Yep.
Great.
Okay.
Is there a list that we possibly might be able to generate and circulate amongst ourselves so that we're not putting the same thing on there quarter to quarter? And that way we would say, hey, you went out in the October one, right? And you said, oh, I noticed that there's some stepping stones that are on the upper walking path.
Why don't we
Well, if
share our list?
Well, that's what I'm
Can we
wondering,
make it
is
just a
there
Google Doc?
like a Google Doc that we as the walkthrough folks, and as well as you, obviously, would be able to update? And that way, when we go every quarter, if Mary Elizabeth already tagged it, I'm not gonna put it on there again in January because it's already been on there. Instead, so I don't know if that's been
And
done
they need to get
or,
removed if they're completed.
yeah, or just scratch
No.
through like, hey, completed November 15th. Again, it's just more of a checks and balance. I don't know what system we have to be able to.
So we've always shied away from things that you could, because then we don't want it to ever become y'all interacting, in some other way outside of a meeting. And
sure.
so we've always kind of shied away from those. But I mean, if we do, say we do a walkthrough in October, it's on the Park Commission meeting in November, we're happy to post what was, submitted to us, what we've done, and just, that way the whole commission sees it. And then by the next time the next walkthrough is in January, you've already seen what was submitted in October, seen how we're dealing with it. You could note, hey, this still isn't done, and you said you'd have it done, or,
I think it's a
something new.
great idea. That way we have every quarter or the next month we're reviewing it.
Mhm.
Same as the police, if they have any kind of situations that arise,
Sure.
we are able to know what's going on. And that way we have one area to go to say, has this been addressed? Has it been corrected? And if not, then what do we need to do about it?
Right. I
I think
agree with that.
So
it's a
is
good
there-
system.
Is there action?
So the action,
I think the action,
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we begin doing the quarterly walkthroughs again and submit our list with a follow-through.
At the following
At the
council
following.
or park commission meeting.
Yes.
And a creation of a Google Doc to,
no, we can't do the
I
Google
No,
Doc.
I think we
Oh.
can just submit this in
Sorry.
writing, and then you will
Okay.
follow up with
Yes,
us.
they'll just send an updated, it'll be in our packet.
Yep,
I
exactly.
really like that, so
Yep.
that's my,
So once a month, it almost sounds as though or once a quarter,
Once
we're
a
gonna
quarter.
have on our agenda as a
the quarterly
consent
walkthrough.
agenda
Mhm, review
portion,
of-
a review of the quarterly walkthrough.
Mhm.
So that'll be a new item on our
sounds good.
monthly agenda.
So is that motion clear enough?
I think so.
Oh. So I make a motion that we resume the quarterly walkthroughs with follow-up on the,
Following Park Commission agenda.
follow-up on the meeting after that.
Any further discussion on that one? Do we have anybody seconding? Victoria? Anybody opposed? Anybody in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, looks like it was approved.
Nice.
Regular agenda item number 5, update discussion, possible action from subcommittee regarding ways to recognize individuals in the park. I believe we had an individual that wanted to put their name on a bench out there in a previous deal, and we were going to explore that a little further.
Well, first of all, we can't have somebody put their name on somebody else's project. That's just wrong.
Yeah.
But I'll let Nicole speak to this.
So Mary Elizabeth, Laurie, and myself tried to get together to sort of brainstorm and see where has the city been on situations like this, what has been done in the past, and then what would our recommendation be. And we weren't able to meet in person, but we were able to go through conversation, text messaging, dialogue, and we resolved that this, where we're at right now, is that unless we're given specific direction from city council on what they want, that we have to just put everything on a pause. That you can adopt what's currently been done. So we have pavers that are outside of the field house. We have pavers that are memorials that are not memorials, but naming rights on the field house. And then you have the pet pavers. So those are 3 processes.
And pavers up here.
And there's pavers down here.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. So whatever has been currently implemented, it appears as though, I'm making the assumption that city council has approved that, and that's why it's here as a naming sake. If city council wants us to consider something larger of like foundations and, large donation amounts to be able to fund some capital project, that direction should really come from them versus us. This was what we had sort of spoken over, but just curious on anybody else's contribution to the discussion on this.
I have a thought. I watched the woman talk about her husband and wanting to put on the park bench. I absolutely agree with that. Something that would be a really nice addition to the park would be if we, say, created somewhere a little grove that would accommodate 4 trees. And there was a place where 4 plaques could be put on this little grove. Growing up, we had a grove of 2 red oaks in our yard that we planted them when I was a young teenager, and they were saplings, and then when I left home, they were big old trees. And I'm thinking that's something that would, without question, benefit the park. I don't know what a tree costs. If you buy a big tree, I know they're expensive, but smaller trees are,
You got any idea where this is going to go?
no, but it's a big park, and we could definitely use more shade.
Sure.
Maybe right in the middle of Field 1. What do you think?
Give it a shot.
Anyway, I'm sure a spot can be found.
Yeah.
Or even a variety
And
of
there's
spots.
probably a lot of other really great opportunities to provide shade or to provide relaxation areas or, fill in the blank to be able to enjoy nature or somehow and connect with it, right? But again, I look at this of the bigger picture of we could come up with the greatest suggestions ever, but unless we're given clear direction from city council, to me, I almost think that if city council wants to entertain this, I believe Councilmember Glasheen had put it on his monthly newsletter last week that he was bringing this idea to council, or a couple weeks ago, that he was bringing this idea to council. I'm not quite sure where that went, if it went anywhere. But again, this was Ann Russell, citizen, resident, coming in to ask if she could name something in the park after her late husband. So that's just the information that kind of recapping where we were at. So I don't know if anyone has any other discussion or thoughts on it.
There's an area north of the pool over there that we could clear out. It's real flat.
Put some trees.
One thing we were
Oh, yeah.
trying to avoid is trying to keep this place from looking like a memorial park.
And a cemetery,
with
right.
plaque, or a cemetery with
Yeah.
plaques everywhere.
That's fair.
But I agree with that. This idea that I have would require the city or the park commission or both to designate an area. And it would just be a designated area. And maybe we could put a border around it. But it would it'd be something that, of course, city council have to approve it, but it could accommodate 4 memorials, and we could probably get a number of those around the park. There's not more than, 10 or 15 memorial benches around the park, if that many, currently.
There's way fewer than
Fewer than
that.
that, maybe 6, 7, 8.
So one thing that I like about what you said, which was we already have an established way to using the pavers, but I don't think we have an annual sort of fundraise for that, which is probably what we really need to do, where we just basically, because the City of Austin does this also, they're like, they have sort of seasons, and they say, okay, this is the spring paver season. If you want to do a memorial, do whatever you want to do,
Yep.
on a brick, and they basically give a 3-month window. This is how because I don't want the staff to have to deal with this all the time. But it's like,
Yep.
and what I probably would do, I know, I'm really gonna go out on a limb here, is say Parks Commission, one of us, or all of us, would make it, we would design the page and be the seller of the pavers, basically, and just say, you put your stuff in, I guess we can collect money through the city, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, Colleen, when she did her pet pavers program, because Lori was involved with that as well, she pulled it up, the one sheet that Colleen had already created, and it was literally like a 3-week window where you can
Exactly.
order, and then if your money's not received, because then it's cost efficient to be able to go ahead and get these engraved, installed, and then you check the box. So it's once a year, or however you wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And just be able to, so there was that process, again, just looking to see what we've already established here.
Exactly.
And then reopen that opportunity for folks. If it was anything grandier than a paver or something that's already been installed, then I think that would require the city council to say, this is what we'd like to see happen in our parks.
Well, speaking to the pavers, and the beauty of that is that, first of all, we're not reinventing the wheel as far as fundraising. Second of all, recently I was at the lower park and looking at some of those pavers there, and it tells such a history of Rollingwood. I look at some people that their children that were raised here, and oh my God, they're raising their own families here now. It's just wonderful. And also when we're dealing with these erosion and drainage issues, well, I mean, these things are pretty sweet on the trail.
Mhm.
And so I think with some thought, some input from the engineers as to where, it's safe or a good place to put them, it'd be really nice to have more of those. So that's my thoughts. One more thing. And then the benches themselves, maybe we could even do if somebody wants to do the larger ones like they did for the pet pavers, we could do some of those in front of the park benches. I don't know what you think, Dawn. You did install our benches for the butterfly
So
garden.
it kind of hits both those angles with Anne. What she was mentioning is that her husband would really like to be near the butterfly garden bench. So if we're able to install some set of pavers there, then you
a
have.
section dedicated to that, maybe
Right.
8 or 10.
Right, and then that way it's just, you're memorializing it there, but you're not necessarily making it a big statement throughout the parks.
And Phil McDuffie, Councilmember McDuffie had a friend who also wanted to do something as far as the butterfly garden. And I've been trying to think of what and how.
I know something it needs. The benches need sort of a border around them full of black gravel, something like that, so they're not just stuck in the ground, kind of. And you could have, beside those, you could have a section of pavers. It would be nice and neat.
Kind of on that
It's-
lawn area?
It'd be, the benches are adjacent to the butterfly garden. One's beside it, one's behind it. There could be just, I want the benches, they look like they're just stuck in the dirt, which they are. I was thinking if that was, there was a border and some black gravel, for example, just to be pretty.
Sure.
And not a terribly expensive, mostly labor.
Well,
But
it's
you could have adjoining that. I think the pavers want to have some sort of something other than just sticking
And then
in
it
the
doesn't
dirt.
take away from the walking trail if we end up doing some type of surface on there that is more permeable, kind of more sustainable versus, okay. So in an effort to kind of keep things moving along, what other discussion or what direction do you think we should go on this?
I heard two things. I heard Mary Elizabeth mention the input from engineers on where it would be. Did I misunderstand that?
No, but, no, you did not.
So that on top of, would the council approve the pavers in different areas other than what's been done?
Well, we've already done the paper, so we know we can do that.
But this new area is not.
But they would be new areas.
It would be, so by the butterfly garden, if that's where we were looking to
That would
adopt.
be the only
Yeah.
difference.
So that is a consideration to say, so, and also Melissa brought up that we should possibly do this once or twice a year as a fundraising effort. So maybe we need more collaboration on this for one more month to say, now that we've gotten more direction and discussion from Park Commission,
Do you,
Mary Elizabeth, you, myself, and Lori will get together and
Okay.
just take these
Why don't
kind
we
of
do
4
that?
points and say, okay, now this is kind of our recommendation for the next
Okay.
I
meeting.
think if it's gonna, because if we have pavers offered once a year, we'll need to have ideas where they're gonna go.
Exactly,
So we
Yeah.
need
and
to
identify
throw those
that.
up to council to make sure.
Someplace
sure.
with no erosion, or light erosion.
Yeah.
we can come back with, so you want to punt this to the next meeting,
Yes.
follow up on this?
So do we
Okay.
have to make a motion or anything on that, or we just say that we're gonna bring this back at next meeting with some more?
Not if we're gonna punt, I don't think.
Okay.
I have a map that I could provide you of the park. It's pretty well to scale.
Great,
I'll get that to you,
thank you.
sure.
All right, moving on. Number 6 on the agenda, discussion and possible action regarding priorities in the park.
That was yours, Chad, from last meeting. You asked everyone.
Oh,
to bring
yeah.
back the-
So did anybody do their homework and come up with
Darn it.
a list of priorities in the park that they want to propose?
Well, we have this new paver process fundraising, so,
Put that wherever you want on the list.
shoot.
Why don't we punt that one also to next month and make sure a quarterly walkthrough happens, and then get the update of what is on the list, and then let's look at that list next month together and say, this is the list of non-maintenance issues, these are the capital things.
Okay,
Perfect.
I'm fine with that. Anybody else? Okay, number 7, discussion and possible action to allow city staff to assign field location for I-9 when leasing the fields and not require the owner of I-9 to have to attend city council meetings to ask for relief to use Hatley Fields 3, 4, and 5.
That was my agenda item. I'm not sure, how many of y'all have been on the commission since we had the old way of commercial approved vendors in the leasing process of what we did? Mary Elizabeth,
Yeah.
Don, you were part of this because you and I and Melissa worked
Yeah,
on this.
Don.
I think when I came on, we were just coming up
Just
with the
coming up with it.
process. Yeah.
So we've been kind of having this conversation for many, many, many years of how do we streamline the process? Because the old system used to be that if you wanted to use the space in the park, you'd have to get on our agenda, you'd have to come and present to Park Commission, we'd have to review it, and then we would give our blessing or we would ask for more information. So that was how it used to be. And then we said, this is kind of antiquated and it's not very efficient because it takes a lot of time for that business owner as well as the Park Commission and be able to operate if they needed to in a more appropriate way. So we came up with a new process. And it's been adopted. We've gone through some revisions. We've collaborated. We've had some ups and downs through it all. But at the end of the day, we had a process that, again, got approved by City Council of how to request commercial vendor applications and what those procedures are, what the policies are intact. And we have, at the last City Council meeting, the request by City Council member Kevin Clashin to say, if I understood the motion correctly, that I-9 Sports needs to be directed to fields 1 and 2, and that if they want relief, they have to come back to council and get permission for 3, 4, and 5. So if I understand that correctly, the only way that that relief can happen is if the owner of I-9 goes to city council meetings, requests relief, and then council can either approve or deny it. So now we're back at the situation again where the months and for the couple of years that we've been doing what we've been doing at Park Commission has now been turned upside down and has been put back to the system that it used to be. Again, this is all from my understanding. So now owner of I-9 and maybe other entities will have the same problem. Maybe Western Hills Little League will have to do this at some point if your lease, ends up in a different situation, but to have to go and request this. So to me, I don't understand the process, the procedure, and why we're discriminating against one youth organized sports group, where the deed for the park is clearly communicated that youth organized sports should have priority, and yet we're forcing this owner to come in and do exactly what we work so hard to not do and move past. So my question is that how do we as a park commission, during that meeting at one point when Councilmember Glasheen was communicating this, Councilmember Alec Robinson had said, hey, park commission has actually done a lot of work on this type of the commercial vendor application, and should we kick it back to them for their thoughts on this? And that fell on deaf ears, and then it was just move on, discussion, take a vote, make a motion, take a vote. And so Councilmember Glasheen, McDuffie, Hudson, and Brown all voted for that owner of I-9 would have to come in for relief in front of council if they want to use 3, 4, and 5. And Robinson was the only one who did not. So again, I think that this is just usurped what our commission has done for a very long time to try to get to a process of efficiency, of consistency, and fair and equitable of all groups that are coming in to use it. And so now it's turned a different direction. And so I guess I'm just bringing it to attention here to have that discussion and conversation with y'all. I did have a conversation with the owner of I-9. He called me, and he said that he's planning to go to the next city council meeting and explain to them how every single time that his group tries to come on the field, he either gets a phone call from city council members, he's asked to relocate. We had this situation in December of 2020. We had it again summer of 2021. We had it last summer. So repeatedly, every single time that they come into the park, he's asked to make accommodations.
So I need to make sure I understand this. So when he is trying to use 3, 4, and 5, he is asked to move to fields 1 and 2.
Correct.
And that is a problem because why?
I don't
He
know.
doesn't like to move?
Well, because his sports groups and his clinics that he does is more equitable for the open field of 3, 4, and 5 versus the base running that's on 1 and 2. And so when you have multi-sport clinics and multi-sport groups out there trying to do different types and styles of sports that aren't baseball or softball related, it's very difficult for him to operate in a safe environment.
Is there a reason we're not renting to him fields 1 and 2 instead to begin with? Just to leave fields 3, 4, and 5 more open to the general public to begin with?
Well,
I'm
again,
just curious.
it's my understanding that when you have a specific sport group, he wanted to come today as well, but he's in Arizona, unfortunately. So when
Okay.
you have a specific sport clinic that requires a non-baseball or non-softball field, 3, 4, and 5 is the only unobstructed field. Because 1 and 2 have baseline running.
And that actually gets in the way of
It
what they're
does.
doing?
It does, because when you play soccer, when you play flag football, when you play a lacrosse, or when you play something that requires something without a non-base running, yes, it
Mhm.
does get into the way.
Okay.
So, the way that I think about it is we want as many users to be using the park at the same time. And that is really hard. And right now, we only have one area that you can be off leash in, which is 3, 4, and 5. And so in my mind, and I don't know how often, and so maybe we can find out from him, we have to use our outfields also. We use it for flag football, lacrosse, soccer, where we have a baseball diamond, and then we use the outfield for other sports, just because that's just maximizes our ability to use other spaces. And so I think I'm imagining what Phil and Kevin are trying to do is make sure that we can have the off-leash area stay open while kids are on the other fields, because the reverse can't happen. If there's kids on 3, 4, and 5, off-leash people are not allowed to go on 1 and 2. And so I think they're just trying to accommodate as many park users at the same time. And even the dogs can't be off-leash down here at the lower park. They can't be where the upper playground is. There's such a limited, if you think about the whole park, there's a very small area that the off-leash people can be on. So, I would like to see, but what I was going to say is I'd love to hear from him, because I also understand if you have 60 kids, then you're going to need more.
He has 50 kids that sign up for his clinic. And he was informed on Thursday, that he has to move, this new relief went into place and he would have to move to 1 and 2. And he said, I need to cancel my clinic. I can't move that group onto 1 and 2. And so we're forced into a situation now where, again, relief is only requested and granted through city council. They don't meet until mid-November. Half of his clinic, he's asking for 1 hour a week. I think it's 4:30 to 5:30 on a Tuesday. And
But
so,
how much time do they need for setting up and so forth?
So
does
let's say maximum an hour and a half, okay? So 15 minutes before, 15 minutes after, right? That's the majority of the way, at least when I've done sports programs and whatnot. You show up 15 minutes early, you take the field, you get off, and at 5:30, you get over here and socialize and convene and let all residents and off-leash dog users come in and use it. But again, you're asking for 1 hour a week, so he's not asking for 30 hours a week, right? He's asking 1 hour a week, and this is his November clinic. He had to cancel the October clinic.
Why did he cancel the October clinic?
Because, what did he share with me?
Was it because of something we did?
It could have been rain or.
Okay, so it was through no fault of ours.
So,
Okay.
my suggestion would be that, and I don't think that he needs to come back to council every time. I think we can probably define something like, if you have a clinic that's under, 50, and we can sit down with him and ask, like, how many kids would you then feel like you really need to be on 3, 4, and 5? And then as long as basically it's, if it's 15 to 20 kids, he can use 1 and 2, and if he goes over 20, then we move to 3, 4, and 5.
And again,
Yeah.
and I believe the way that the procedure and the policy was adopted, if I understood it correctly, was that city staff would have sort of the discretion, right? Have a conversation with the owner and say, how many do you have for this particular session that you're offering? And then use that discretion to be able to say, to your point, but again, you took what was to be understood as a procedure and a policy, and now it's gone completely back to what we had 2-3 years ago, of needing permission and approval, which makes it frustrating for any business owner to come in. And so looking to see what are our options here and what direction, again, we can say all we want, we can vote all we want, we can make every recommendation we want, but it ultimately ends up in city council's hands. So I know that this owner is frustrated. I know that he will share openly the kind of treatment he's had. I think that is a blemish on City of Rollingwood. I think that we do have damage control to do to a certain degree if we want to preserve this relationship that we've had with him for many, many, many years. And cut and paste, if it's not him, it might be somebody else who comes along. So that's where I'm at right now. So I'd love other input or discussion, and to make a motion, we can, go ahead.
I've got some thoughts. I view our park as first and foremost, it's a community park. It's the only community park City of Rollingwood has.
The only one.
And when I see all those fields vacant for so much because they're dedicated to baseball, except for the 3, 4, and 5 where you can go, you can take your dog, and that 3, 4, and 5 is more or less it's kind of a community meeting place. And I think in my mind that the vendors who want to use the park should work around the needs of the community. And I understand we don't want things to be tedious and all that, but I think we have to be careful about giving outside vendors too much of our park when you're saying, well, no, you can't bring your dog down here. I went to the park this morning, there were like 8 or 10 people and 10 or 12 dogs there. It was lovely. It was nice. That's the community.
Understood.
And it's different, and those are my thoughts. To me, first and foremost, it's a community park, and vendors, they do pay some money, but it's not a ton of money. I think if we didn't have that money, we'd find a way to work around it.
Well, and it's almost like it's an all or nothing, it appears, because we did have the separate off-leash dog area approved through City Council in 2021. That's not good enough because they want the larger space, or for whatever the reasons are, it fell
No,
on
where,
deaf
where did they
ears.
put them? Where did
So
they,
again,
what
according to the
space
master
did
park
they
plan,
approve?
according to the master park plan,
Oh.
because I was a part of that subcommittee, and former David Raymond and maybe Laurie Mills were also part of that. So we did. We took a big project, and we said, let's go forward with this, and we were able to get the cost associated with it according to the master park plan. We took it to the city council July of 2021, and it got approved, right? Well, November of 2021, council was changed over due to the election, and that's fallen on deaf ears. So we can't have commercial vendors come in and use a space that the deed has been warded to. We can't build the off-leash dog area because that's not a big enough space, or for whatever reason, the city doesn't want to go that direction. So we can't have our cake and eat it too, right? So we can't bring in commercial approved vendors for the rights to use the fields because the off-leash dog owners don't want to go anywhere else. Well, we gave an option to go somewhere else, but that's not good enough. So again,
There is no other option.
but there was.
Where is there now another option?
Well, if that were to go out for RFP and you actually get funded for it.
No, for right now.
right
Where is another option? I'm trying to understand.
I don't know.
And isn't the master plan basically a guidance? It's not like written in stone that we have to do that. Is that correct? Or was it there to guide us?
I wasn't part of the master park plan,
Okay,
so
okay.
I don't know that answer. But again, looking at this is that 1 hour a week, or maybe, you look at less than 1% of the entire hours of a year that I-9 Sports wanted to come in and use the space, and we're saying no to them. So, okay, if that's really the stance that we as the Park Commission want to say, as well as the City Council of Rollingwood, I can't wait to hear how it gets into the media. Like, Rollingwood City Council folks and Park Commission refused to let I-9 Youth Organized Sports use the fields for 1 hour a week because they don't have a place to put their off-leash dog area.
I can see the allure of using fields 3, 4, and 5 for I-9. And I do think it leaves a blemish when we tell them we'll rent them fields 3, 4, and 5 and then make them move at the last minute. I think those are both problems. I do think it's wonderful when there's 8 or 12 dogs out there and people talking and everything like that, but it seems like we ought to be able to pull off both. And if we advertise that I-9 has the field for 1 hour Thursday from 4:30 to 5:30, and we're real clear about that, the people who go up there on a regular basis need to know that and can adjust their plans accordingly. They can come out at 6 o'clock, one day and do it, in my mind. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to keep both sides happy and keep I-9 coming out and using it. And I think that's how you maximize use of a park and how you make it available to not only the dog owners but also the youth. And this is on a very small
Limited basis.
Well,
I think we ought to be able to pull off both, is what I'm saying. And I don't think shutting off fields 3, 4, and 5 from being rented on a limited basis every once in a while, I don't think that's a good idea.
How often is it?
Right now, their November clinic is 1 hour per week, 1 day a week.
So it's just for the month of November?
For the month of November. I believe we used to, I believe I might have put in this packet, if not, they had given us an annual, so as a business, like Waya probably, they have on an annual basis how often they would like to advertise and publish that a clinic would be held in Rollingwood Park. And we had put that in a packet a couple of years ago. We approved it all the way through spring break. You were part of that approval process because of the Little League and the softball schedules. So again, so right now they have the month of November. They possibly have one over the winter break. They may have one in February. They may have one in spring break. Ashley, you may have a full schedule from.
I don't think we do at this time. I
Okay.
think currently all we have in our system is the November
Okay.
Dates.
So I think we can easily ask the owner of I-9 Sports to submit, and again, I can pull it up. It was back in a packet that I submitted
So we're
probably 2 years
talking less
ago.
than 10 hours a year?
Yeah, and then in the summer, what happens is that he'll do 4 one-week camps from 9 till noon. And it's usually 2 in June and usually 2 in July. And when he can, he will move. When he is not able to, again, we're on thin ice, I think.
You know, I'd like actually to hear from Phil McDuffie, Councilmember McDuffie. I believe he has something to speak to. Oh, I guess you had something to say.
I was just going to speak a little bit to this specific situation. So,
Okay.
we first of all generally would like a little bit more notice on these, and I think there was some mix-up. He thought the camp was going to be canceled, realized they were still able to sign up for it on his website. So we weren't made aware of this camp until I believe Thursday of last week. We had, at the previous council meeting, there was some discussion and there was some direction given regarding only leasing fields 1 and 2 as opposed to 3, 4, and 5. There was a little bit of miscommunication between that meeting and what the actual motion was. We had kind of interpreted it as no more 3, 4, and 5. It's only 1 and 2. And so when Justin reached out to us about this camp, we had said, you know, this is the policy, and you know, you have to move to 1 and 2. And he said, well, I've already spoken to softball and baseball, and they're there already. So those were full at the time that he was wanting to use. And so we went back and we talked a little bit to the mayor, talked to Councilmember Glasheen, and you know, understood that they did intend there to be some flexibility in that that direction given. So it wasn't a clear never use 3, 4, and 5. So we did end up going and saying, okay, because 1 and 2 are full, you can use that for these limited dates. I think first off, it would have been helpful if we had a little bit further in advance notice, and I think that was just a mix-up on everyone's end and not getting that into us in time. So I think going forward, we just like a little bit more advance. So that way, if there is something that needs to come to council, if it's the ones in the summertime that are 4 full weeks or full weeks from 9 to 12, I think that would be something that we would then interpret should come to the city council for their, for them to rule on. But I think if we had at least a month in advance, we could get that on an agenda, give him some notice. Probably even sooner would be better in his case, so he could have people signing up for those camps. So we'll have a discussion with him about getting that in sooner to us. But I think as far as these smaller 1 hour a week, we felt comfortable approving it after understanding that there was some flexibility in that policy.
So those 1 week camps in July, those are on fields 1 and 2?
So he has not submitted anything about those yet, so we are not sure. In the past, I think he's used a little bit of both. I think it's always been he's rented out 3, 4, and 5, and when he could, would be moving to 1 and 2 to try to, take some of that off of fields 3, 4, and 5. I believe since then, staff had understood that our new policy was going to be, no, we need you to start at 1 and 2. And then if you have to overflow or something, we can talk about it. And so
Okay,
that's
I like
how
that.
we had been interpreting it. But in this case, 1 and 2 were just already booked from softball and baseball.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mhm.
I like the idea of him starting though there when he can in the summer, just to give the other people a chance.
Sure.
But I also like the idea of fulfilling our contract or agreement with him.
Mm-hmm.
But
And there were some days that, or some times that he said, look, it's not that necessarily a number of kids, it's how we need to use the fields, and they would like to use 3, 4, and 5. So there were days that, they weren't using 1 and 2, but they were using 3, 4, and 5, at least in some of his recent camps. And so it's just it wasn't always based on the numbers, and then he could always fit on 1 and 2.
I'm
So.
sorry, we used to play in our yards and fields everywhere. I don't have a lot of sympathy for the shape of the field or the
Sure.
bases. I don't see why they can't work around that. But I do think,
Yeah, I think all the more reason why we would probably like to take those to council then, to make sure that that's something that's approved when it's that long of a use.
And it seems as though communication, right? So if Justin communicates with city staff that this is the type of field that I'm using for this particular sports camp on this day from this time, then that's something that then goes to city council, or is that to your discretion, then you place him, or where do we go from here? I guess the question is, I brought this to attention because again, for many years we've been discussing it here as a commission. It went to the council last week or 2 weeks ago and it was changed. And so now we have a frustrated vendor and we need to understand what is our next move. And so if I understand you correctly, that they will be given the opportunity, I-9 will have the opportunity to use fields 3, 4, and 5 for their 1 hour clinics.
Mm-hmm.
And that for multi-day, multi-hour clinics, that they would explain to you what their field usage would be, and then staff would determine which is the best place to.
no, she wants them to start on 1 and 2.
Right, and if 1 and 2 cannot be accommodated, and I think too, after all of this, we had already talked about bringing another item to council to kind of clarify this policy, just so staff and everyone is aware of it. So I think all of this discussion could go into what ultimately council would like to do for those bigger, longer.
And then will
camps.
will Mr. Cannon be able to be a part of that? Because my concern is that you all can come up with a great policy, but it may not work well with him as an approved vendor.
Yeah, I think we risk running them off.
I mean,
I mean, I think with enough advance notice, and if it's a minimal amount of time, like what we're talking about, the 1%, that people ought to be able to rent fields 3, 4, and 5 if they want to. If they've got 50 kids out there running around, it's tough to do it on field 1. That's just my 2 cents.
And then, so again, just trying to get clarification
Sure.
that you all can put a policy together, but it may not be in the best interest of folks that need to use that further. So how, at what point, who collaborates on that, or is it just, boy, this is the way it goes from here?
I think we would like a lot clearer direction from city council at this point. I never want staff to be in the middle of,
Sure.
trying to satisfy the different, uses of the field. We're never intending to try to, allow one use and take away from another use. We're just trying to, to carry out the policy as it was given to us. So I think at this point we'd like a lot more clarification from council.
So I suspect that there will be a lot more discussion, and since we are not a body that makes policy,
Correct.
that we should all, as citizens, attend a council meeting, and that they can have this discussion deciding going forward. They already have what our recommendation was, and I do think that we could talk about this for another 30 minutes,
Sure.
but we probably aren't going to go anywhere.
I agree.
But yeah, thanks for bringing it up. I think that's really interesting. We'll see, and I definitely want staff to get good direction from council so that they'll be able to do as much administratively without.
Sure. Go into council. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Who's the chair now?
You.
All right. The power. No.
Oh, God, here she
No.
goes.
Okay, so we are on
8.
8. Oh, wow, this will be fun. Okay.
That's why Chad
Go
left.
Yeah.
Right?
It's very strategic.
Well, this is my agenda item, and this is not to be contentious. This is not to have any kind of disagreement. This is just truly about bringing to attention of, we've had multiple conversations over what is our purpose here as a commission. I looked back through when I did a search on I-9 and all these things popped up through the website, how many years we've had conversations. This particular function of the Park Commission has come on repeatedly, at least on an annual basis, of what is our purpose here. And so we come in and we share a recommendation, and then a couple of months ago, I wasn't here, but something had happened. A couple of our Park Commission folks left. This item that Councilmember Glasheen brought up to council last month in October was completely the opposite of what we as a commission had discussed. And this is frustrating because you speak on one hand, with all due respect, to come and want to work together, but then you go and you undermine the work of what had been done without consideration of anything that had taken place. And so if our goal here is to really support the initiative of the park, the city, for the benefit of the residents, yet that's being undermined or as a conflict with what you're representing toward us and toward city council, I don't see how we move together and say this is a good relationship to be working with. And it's not an easy discussion to have, but it's more of, we're open forum now and we can have this, and where do we go from here?
I'm sure it's a very difficult thing to bring up, and we do respect your work. We do. And we respect your enthusiasm. But it is, and we haven't had a conversation about this, but it is awkward, or it's a new situation to have a city council member as our liaison that I don't feel like you're a liaison. I feel like you're more of our director or CEO or something, is what it feels like. I feel more like you're here to guide us or something. I have felt like you have run our meetings before. I don't see you as a liaison, and I'm sorry. Because I do respect your love for our community and our park, but I don't feel like you're a liaison much at all. Sorry.
I've worked with Kevin three times. He invited me to meet with him and a contractor regarding the erosion. And he has invited others after our meetings to go look at the situation. I don't think there's any hidden agenda. I mean, that sounds ridiculous to say. I think we're real fortunate to have Kevin as a liaison. There has to be, a liaison can be a conduit of communication between a commission and city council. That's critical.
I agree.
And it, you know, that's just gonna happen. And
But no one's
He-
arguing with that.
his work on the park, on the grass, the erosion management was turned down by city council, but it's not anything I know how to do. I don't think there's anybody on the park commission that really has a feel for working with dirt and grass and plants and water flow. Kevin's very knowledgeable about this. And I've been to many of the meetings where he has spoken, and I'm all ears. So I would consider it a loss if Kevin was not our liaison. My thoughts.
I have a question, Ashley. So is it defined in the ordinances what the role of a liaison is?
Let me take a look at that.
Okay.
I don't think it's as clear, as robust as we think it would, but I think it just has a small description. Let me pull that up and I'll
Okay.
read that to y'all.
Because I do think that, each council person, their role on as a liaison is different. Some of it is personality, some of it is interest. I'm more familiar in the past with having a council member who is more of an observer and sits through the meetings, doesn't usually speak unless someone directly asks them a question. And then depending, it could, because again, there's liaisons for parks. Is there a liaison for RCDC?
There is.
And a liaison for utility?
P and Z,
P&Z.
BOA.
And then a few other things that aren't boards and commissions. We
Okay.
have other areas.
Right, like police, I think,
Streets.
yeah, streets. So, it's interesting because I think maybe if we had a better definition of what, I do think it's fair for us to say what we were hoping in a liaison, and then also for the ordinance to tell us what is the role of the liaison. And then it could even be that council directs the liaison, the mayor and the council may direct the liaison also as what their role is. So, but I think clarity in that would be helpful for this group going forward.
Yeah, we really don't have a big, anything about that really in our ordinances. We have one small section that just says that they, will be the council's representative for negotiations and formulation of council-approved policies in connection with their assigned issue or subject. So it doesn't really give us a lot of information.
According to the Cambridge Dictionary, a liaison is someone who helps groups to work effectively with each other. So maybe we need to just learn how to work more effectively with each other. There's different options here. Maybe we get a different liaison. or maybe we learn how to do a better job. I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there. I think it's good that we're being honest with our feelings, but
Well, and feelings are one thing, right? Feelings will ebb and flow, but this
Okay.
is fact-based, right? So
Okay.
something happened factually 2 months ago that caused two of y'all to walk out of the meeting. I wasn't here. Something happened fact-based for me to put this on the agenda item of Councilmember Glasheen came up here last month at our meeting and said, we are here to work together. And then he goes and he puts an agenda item on the city council about completely undermining the usage of 3, 4, and 5, without even bringing it to attention, to say, hey, you know what, I think Park Commission has done this in the past, let me at least reach out to somebody. So these are facts that council member has repeatedly done, right? And so emotion is one thing, but
That's
facts
true.
speak for themselves, and facts don't lie. And so I think of this as that there's been interference with certain things and certain objectives for certain folks on council that if it doesn't work well with their agenda, they've decided to take actions into their own hands and not work collectively as a commission, right? And I've put in there several examples of this, you know, at the time when now Council Member Phil McDuffie moved I-9, right? He could have said something to the Park Commission, hey, they shouldn't be using those fields. Glasheen has done the same thing. Every time I-9 comes out here, there's a phone call from somebody on council, like directing them. This is not involving us. This is not collaborating. This is one specific example, right? If I have time, I'll go through and try to find other things. I don't want that. That's not what this is about. It's just, is there consistent facts that are supporting that there's dissension and a disruption in the way that we collaborate together and we work to be the most effective for this city? And if we put together something and then it falls on deaf ears at city council, what is the purpose of that? Which goes back to what Lori's point was several meetings ago of we need to understand what our responsibilities are. We need to be able to get guidance and direction from council on projects that they will then support, because if we don't get their support, it doesn't matter what we do. It really doesn't. And so who is going to be the best person to collaborate with us and to be able to bring us to that next, if truly, or we just dissolve the commission. Like, let's make a recommendation to go to city council and say dissolve Park Commission, because there's really not an effectiveness that we're working cohesively with our liaison at this particular time.
it has gotten to the point that we actually talked about that.
If I understand it, we are an advisory board, and city council doesn't require our, I mean, we could vote unanimously on something, the city council can reject it.
Mhm.
So we're an advisory board, and I don't think that city council requires our approval. I don't think they require that. I think it's probably better if we all work together, but I don't think they require that.
They don't.
They don't.
Okay.
And so this is the point of us. We can make a recommendation, but they can go and do what they want, right?
Well, but that's
And
the
so
way
then
it's
the
always been.
liaison should be here to work collectively with us to get things moved, collaborating, right? Well, we don't have that. We don't have that as a liaison of somebody that's collaborating with us to say, here, let's move ahead on X, Y, and Z. It comes to us of like, this is the direction we're gonna go with it. We wanna put up a retention wall. It's gonna cost us $30,000. We wanna do this in fields 3, 4, and 5. So it's more of, to Mary Elizabeth's point, in my opinion, it's more of a dictatorship, more of a dictatorial of like, this is the direction you need to go, versus us having ideas and collaborating amongst ourselves and being able to have that project or have that, you know, capital improvement idea to be able to move forward with. And so, again, purpose of us, rules, regulations, liaison, and then the interaction with city council. And then
So again, I think some of this, and maybe we should be asking city council, basically to say, how should we be using the liaison? And, because again, in the past, I've seen different things, having been on the other end of council, sitting on council. We've had park commission members who, you know, built a butterfly garden. And so instead of sending the chair of Parks Commission or having the liaison speak at city council, the individual from Parks Commission basically came and did the proposal.
yes.
And so maybe I think what I'm hearing is we would like to have Parks Commission be the if someone is going to speak on behalf of Parks Commission, we'd rather it be either a piece of paper that we all approve of, or a member from the Parks Commission going and speaking, or the chair going to speak, because it doesn't feel like the liaison is speaking, is speaking
For us.
true to what we're experiencing. That's what I'm hearing.
That
And
is-
I know that was a little bit, if, you know, I've talked to Kevin about that before. I think it's, because it felt like a few times Kevin would say, oh, the Park Commission is all on board with this. The Park Commission was not all on board with this. And so I do think that's what I'm hearing from this. So I do think also that and now I'm gonna kind of set out a totally different scenario. Let's just say this Parks Commission was going rogue and doing crazy stuff, not following the ordinances, doing whatever. I do think the liaison is helpful to come and be a listener to what's happening, and either bring that back to council and tell council, hey, this group is not following the rules, they're not following what council is directing them to do as a group, and then, again, I'm not really sure how it would work. I guess the mayor would come and speak to us and say, hey guys, you guys need to get back on track. I don't really see the liaison as ever being over the Parks Commission and telling the Parks Commission, hey y'all, here's how you should get back on track. They're just, again, I always thought the liaison was more of a communication channel, as making sure that someone on the council is sitting in these meetings and making sure that we're following procedures.
Yes.
Besides the staff. Because it shouldn't be that the staff has to worry about, you know, reporting back on the citizens who are the leaders in the community. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Victoria, you have not spoken yet, and do you mind me just asking thoughts?
I feel too new to have thoughts about this. There's a history here that I wasn't part of. I do think as a citizen, nothing ever happened in the park. You know, just before I started learning about the government and the councils and such, what I've seen since Councilmember Basheen has been involved is some really good improvements in the park. It would be nice to be part of that, or for the Parks Commission to also be part of being able to help these things happen, but I didn't see that before. So I'm a little bit confused as to what the council wants us to do, honestly. Because if it takes a council member who's passionate about the park to get these things to happen, when the council or the commission itself hasn't been able to get these things to happen, I wasn't here before I got here. So I don't know why this commission wasn't getting those things to happen before council member took interest. So I'm at a loss for how to make it work. I just don't have the background or the understanding of why it wasn't getting done before. I love that there's new grass in the field. I think that's fantastic. It's fantastic for everybody that uses it. But it took a council member to get it going. So, you know, to me, that I've been trying to figure out, okay, what's maintenance versus, and whose responsibility is that? We don't have a budget. But things do get done in the park that are maintenance. I understand that's kind of up to the council to make sure that that money gets allocated that way, because we don't have control of that clearly. So I've been trying to figure it all out. It's confusing to me.
One thing about my experience at the Park Commission is we have always felt like we had no money. No money to spend, and so a lot of our ideas would run into, well, it's how do we fund it? We've talked about raising fees in the park, and we did do some of that, which helps. It's still not a lot of money. One of the things Kevin has done is he's brought in outside money. He's working with RCDC. I think there's some relationships there that should turn some funds loose for projects in the park, which none of us ever opened any of that up, and that's.
I think that Brian Ryder made it clear that there would be RCDC money for it. So I don't think that we only got that money because of Kevin Glasheen. The other money, yes, but RCDC money,
Well,
That's available.
we haven't gotten any yet that I'm aware of.
well,
We haven't put a project together that went in front of RCDC to ask for special exception to be funded. That's not, the process that I understand is that we have to come
Well,
up with,
There was that item of Councilmember Glasheen's that I put on the agenda for us to talk about. Went to RCDC, had the funding, council didn't want it. So in my opinion, that's one of those things where we need more direction from council about how to go about these
Mhm.
things. I also think that if we even had a budget, it's my understanding that before we used it, we would need to go to council. Clearly, that's not, I mean, that puts us back in the same boat. Okay, we have a little bit of money, but if we have to go to council to ask to use it, we're still in the same boat where our recommendations or whatever we take to them is not going through. So, again, I'm in this circle in my brain about how is this working, what's supposed to happen. We need more guidance from council, in my opinion, about how that should look. And not just the liaison, but direction from the council.
Is there a motion or do we?
so my motion, did you want,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
May I respond to address some of that? Okay, first of all, on the use of fields 3, 4, and 5, what we asked the administration to do was if the vendor can use 1 and 2, then they should, because the public can't use 1 and 2, and we just want that to be the first choice, the priority. And if there's a problem for some reason why they needed to use 3, 4, and 5, then we wanted staff to have discretion to do that. That might not have been entirely clear. And when Ashley called me this week and said, oh, they've got a problem, they thought they had canceled a clinic, but they didn't, and they need to use 3, 4, and 5 because they got a lot of kids. I said, fine, you've got discretion to do that. It was just a question of preferred that they use 1 and 2. I didn't think that was a policy change. I thought that was just a question of communicating well between city staff and the vendor I-9, just to give some consideration to trying to leave fields 3, 4, and 5 available. I made that motion, but it's something that, Phil McDuffie and I discussed. I've never talked to the guy from I-9. You mentioned his name. I don't know who he is. I haven't called him, told him to do anything differently. I just made that motion for that reason, because it was an issue that Phil and I had discussed, and he had some concerns about it, and I thought it made sense. I thought it seems reasonable.
so why didn't he make the motion instead of you putting on the discussion?
I don't know. We were talking about different things, and I said, I'll make that motion for you.
And then to put relief has to come through city council.
No, that's not what the
That's not
intention
how the
was. The intention
motion
was that city staff has the discretion to deal with it if they need to use 3, 4, and 5. That was the intent. I don't know that in the discussion at council that was clearly made, and I don't know how it ended up, but that's why we have minutes to approve next meeting, and that's why it'll probably get discussed again, and hopefully get clarified, as Ashley mentioned. She'd like it to be clarified. So anyway, I didn't think that was that we were like changing policy or anything on leasing fields. And then addressing your comment, Mary Elizabeth, do you feel like I've run park commission meetings? I have no vote on park commission. I don't even get to speak unless the chair recognizes me. And in the case that you were upset and left the meeting, the chair had recognized me to speak, and I was speaking. Sorry if that was offensive to you, but
but you spoke for you spoke for over 30 minutes.
Well, then make a motion, ask the chair to tell me to sit down and be quiet.
We did.
Well, then the chair didn't pass your motion. If he
I know.
had,
Let's
then.
not go back and forth. We'll just let him
But
speak.
the chair runs your park commission meetings, and if you don't like the way the chair's running the meeting, that's up to you, between you and the chair. That's my comment on that. As far as the park commission and its purpose goes, I think that that's a great question, and I have asked staff to put it on the council agenda for the next meeting and talk about what do we want Park Commission to do. Do we want Park Commission to be in charge of maintenance at the park? Do they want to be in charge of capital improvements at the park? Do we want them to be in charge of fundraising, which they haven't been doing? Do we want them to be in charge of leasing the park out to things in terms of contracts and leases, which apparently no one has ever authorized the Park Commission to do that or asked the Park Commission to do it, but the Park Commission's been doing it. And I think it would be better to have some clarity about whether we want Park Commission to be doing that. And if we do, then fine, let's let them do it. But right now, none of that's clear at all to me. And I share your frustration with the Park Commission. When I got elected, I didn't have a bunch of background with the Park Commission or with the City Council. What I saw is, frankly, and just being candid here, a poorly maintained park that had a lot of obvious capital improvements that need to be done that no one's ever been able to accomplish anything. And what I picked up from the Park Commission is what I would call a sense of learned helplessness, where you can't accomplish anything because you have no budget and no one ever supports what you want to get done. So I thought that a way to help would be to accomplish something. And so that's why I worked on fields 3, 4, and 5. And I know enough about the history of Park Commission and City Council to know the park is a very sensitive subject, and that a lot of people just get their feathers ruffled whenever anything is going to happen at the park, and I understand that. And that's why for the first project to fix the grass at 3, 4, and 5, we did it with private contributions and got council to approve doing it, and just did it because we didn't want to make a bureaucratic nightmare out of it. And so we got something done. And then we also got the little gate fixed for the dog park, double gate, which RCDC actually funded also, which I thought was a good way to start trying to get RCDC to fund things. And I am the liaison to RCDC, and that was on purpose so that I could get their money for the Park Commission. That's why I signed up to do RCDC, was to get money for the park. And then the next project was that retaining wall. And look, we had to get three groups to approve the retaining wall: Council, RCDC, and Park Commission. Where do we start with that? Okay, to me, I talked to Chad Smith, I talked to other people who'd been on the Park Commission, and they all said, oh, that retaining wall is something we've always wanted. So I'm like, great. So I went to get the funding for it first, and then came here, and I think that might have offended some people that it didn't start at the Park Commission. Sorry, I didn't know that was such a sensitive issue. Now I understand that. I'll tell you also, you know, a lot of the problems that you see on the Park Commission walkthrough list, which there hadn't been a walkthrough in over a year, but when you look at the list, a lot of the problems in the park, in my mind, are sprinkler system problems. Well, I got the city to approve funding for a guy to come in and map the sprinkler system that we have. We have no map. We don't even have a drawing of the park, guys, and we're trying to get that put together, like an engineering drawing on a CAD or even a GIS map. I've been working with city staff to do that we can use as a base to map the sprinkler system from the meters. There are 3 meters coming into the park, through each valve station, and then calculate the flow that's on each linear. There's actually 3. There were
It'll
2.
take 2 minutes.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks. So anyway, we're working on that. And then there is an erosion problem after our last Park Commission meeting at the gazebo. Lori Mills showed me, and I said, look, we can get that fixed. We walked through it this morning with Izzy and Victoria, and I asked her, I was like, look, I'm not going to deal with this project with Park Commission. If you're interested in it, or Lori, I invited her to go because it was kind of her deal, but she couldn't be there today. Said, y'all run with that and get with Lori, and y'all figure out if it's something Park Commission likes the proposed solution that we've got, that Izzy says we can get done. We can do it within city budget. So my only intention is to help. You've got another Park Commission liaison, Alec Robinson, and I've never seen him here in the year I've been on council, but you've got one. And look, my only interest was in helping. It takes a lot of my time. It's taken a fair amount of my money, which I don't mind donating. I've got other ideas for what the Park Commission could do that I think we could get through council. I don't need to do them. There's other things I can do with my life, or other ways I can help serve the city if it's too unpleasant to work with me, or you guys have problems with the way I approach problems or communicate. That's fine. If you guys don't need to ask council to ask me to stop being the liaison. If you guys decide you don't want me to be the liaison, it won't go to council. I just won't do it. And I don't need to show up here and try to help if it's not helpful and if it's not, you know, something that you guys want. So anyway, I'm glad to try to help, but I'm also glad to step aside and get out of the way if that works better for y'all.
Thank you. Is there any action on this item, or can we go to the next item?
Well, I did have a discussion, possible action item to request a new city council member be assigned as park commission liaison. At this time, I will go ahead and make a motion to request that, and if there's a second, great, and if not, then
Is there a second
I'll second that.
for discussion? So there's a motion for another liaison. Is there any additional discussion? So, I'm gonna mention that I don't think it's, I think that they're assigned by the mayor and the council, no? The liaison is,
The mayor puts up a slate, but council decides what they wanna do,
what they wanna do.
liaison
So,
to,
I mean, we
right?
can definitely ask them, but in the end, they'll get to decide who our liaison is. Okay.
okay.
Okay. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
What's the motion
The
is
motion
to
is to
find a
add,
new-
request city council to provide a different liaison to the Parks Commission.
Okay.
All those in favor, raise your hand, aye.
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 All those opposed? I'm gonna abstain, so the motion
Fails.
fails.
Oh, it ties. It ties?
A tie,
2 and
either
2
way,
and abstain.
yeah.
Oh. So it fails.
It fails.
Yep, if you don't.
Fails.
Now, why were you abstaining, if I might ask?
Why did I abstain? Because I didn't feel one way or the other.
I think you have to vote. I know we've had these
No,
where
she doesn't.
You don't have to.
You don't have to
She
vote.
doesn't.
You can abstain.
somebody abstained and, I think Ashley said, well, no, do you recall that, Ashley? I don't remember who it was.
I'm trying to think if this is a different situation.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, I can vote if you want me to. I'm voting against the motion.
Okay.
So it
Failed
fails.
anyway.
Yep.
So it
Fails
fails
anyway.
anyway.
Okay.
You maybe put
finished
my
with
cards
this,
on
or-
the table?
Can I say, yeah, I'd like to say something.
That's fine, yep.
As a new commission member, when I saw what I thought was improvement in the park and tried to route things through the commission by putting the agenda item on, I then went to RCDC. They were really grateful to see a park commission member there. We all know that failed, but in doing so, I ruffled some feathers on the Parks Commission because it appeared that I was colluding when I'm actually just trying to figure out how this is working and get some improvements to the park. It's weird because I suddenly felt like, oh goodness, there's sides, and I've stepped across a boundary and upset people.
Because you went to RCDC?
Because I went to RCDC, I was told, well, that means that she's in favor of what Councilmember Glasheen is presenting, therefore she's against what I want. And this was heard in a roundabout manner. This, to me, is disturbing and indicates major issues with things just getting done. And also, you know, causes me to think, do I want to just step off the Parks Commission because this is something I don't need? I've got enough in my life. So I think it's good that we're talking about it because I think that the way things have been done is partially because Councilmember Glasheen is a new council member. He doesn't know, hasn't learned yet how things are working or how to not ruffle feathers. I'm the same way. I'm kind of stepping in it too. So I think it will be a good thing for us to see what we have here and try to figure out what's working and figure it out as opposed to, and talk openly. So whoever, if you put this on here, I'm glad you did because it is a discussion we need to have. And as a Parks Commission, we can make some decisions, hold tighter meetings, create limits on how long people are speaking. All of those things are good ideas.
I want to speak one more on this issue while we're here. Councilmember Glasheen said two things that I really liked. You used the term that when you looked at Park Commission, that we had this learned helplessness. I believe that was it. I'm like, that is so on target. It's just so sad, but it really is. I mean, and we really need to deal with that. But if you're gonna continue as our liaison, I'd like you to try to, if you could take our criticisms and somehow help us in that regard to move past this, that would be great. And you also said we were ineffective. Yeah, oh heck yeah, we have been. But that gate you were talking about that you did, well, Councilmember McDuffie had been working on that. So I don't know, I didn't know that you did that. I thought he had been working on that, but yeah. Anyway, but that learned helplessness, oh my God, that's so sad.
And lastly, just
Oh, yeah.
part of this is that when you're in a position of authority and you can make decisions, things can get done.
Mhm.
We are not in a position of authority. So again, I go back to liaison, of that if your liaison role is to observe, partner, collaborate, that's one thing. But if it's to come in and say, well, this is a great idea and I can get it funded and I can get it initiated and implemented, that's just your city council role. That's not your liaison effectiveness within this park commission. So I think there's two different things here. When you have the ability to have authoritative command and get things done and be a decision maker, you bet you can give us a list of your resume. As a city council member, you can have an amazing resume. But as a liaison and an effective liaison for park commission, I think the two are completely disrelated right now with what I've experienced in the last year with Glasheen, Councilmember Glasheen as our liaison. That's just my
Yeah.
last minute.
And help us, I mean, work with us so there isn't this helplessness. So that we're not ineffective.
We're gonna move on to
Yeah.
the next, because I think this is a really important thing. We have,
9
basically
minutes.
9 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
And the very next thing we have on there is discussion and possible action to create rules for the Parks Commission.
Should we wait on that and get to this schedule?
Oh, yes, okay, we're gonna
Table
table that for just a minute. We're gonna go to the, meeting days and times. We have on here, if y'all have looked at the cross-section, there was no day that everybody could absolutely meet.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't-
So I'm the only one at 12 on Wednesdays. Fine. Let's do
But
it.
I'm the only one on Tuesdays.
Oh, wait a minute.
Well, what do you have on Tuesdays?
I have a staff meeting at 12 o'clock.
Okay, well, I have Bible study. I'll figure out how to change it.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you
you're welcome.
very much. Okay,
Your
so
staff
we're gonna
meeting
move
trumps
to
mine.
Wednesdays at 12 p.m.
Which day
Going
of the
forward
week?
at Ashley, it's the second week of the month, Wednesdays 12 p.m. Actually,
Whoa, Wednesday, 12 p.m.?
I think you guys need to make a motion on
yeah, well, we will, but
it.
That
Dawn
doesn't
said
work for
no.
me. I'm sorry,
Don didn't send it.
I was not at the meeting and
You did not
I
send
found
it.
this, several days ago and
so Dawn, you can't do any Wednesdays at noon?
I could do a Wednesday morning, but there's a,
He
But-
said the answer is no till Wednesday at noon.
Okay,
Yeah.
well then we'll do Tuesdays. We'll move to Tuesdays. I will move my entire staff.
No.
I'm good either
I'm
9
the
a.m. or
boss.
12.
I can do that.
Okay, we got a no from Chad on Tuesday morning. You're looking at where are there all yeses?
Yeah, the only ones that we had the least number
I
of
can
no's.
do Wednesday at 9. I can do Wednesday at 9, but
But
Mary
no,
Elizabeth
there's a
and
bunch of
Nicole
no's
cannot.
there. No, really, that was the only one. I'm gonna, once a month, my staff will meet at a different time.
Okay, so when are we then?
We're gonna go Tuesdays, second week of the month. Oh, wait, actually, well, Lori didn't say on that one, so I'm just gonna, since this, she did say a yes. Can you do Tuesdays noon, second week of the month?
He said yes.
Can I? Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so that's it. We'll move to Tuesdays.
So make a motion.
Oh, yeah.
I'll make a motion that the Park Commission meetings will move to the second Tuesday of the month at 12 p.m.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
And this starts in December.
December.
Let's do 11 also real quick. Discussion and intent to continue to serve on Parks Commission. You don't have to make your decision at this very moment, but
Right. Yes, you do not have to. Currently, we have Nicole Morisi, Melissa Morrow, Dawn Hudson, and Lori Mills. We'll email Lori afterwards to confirm with her. But those are the four whose terms are ending this year. Anyone else, obviously, could also choose to, not continue serving at any moment. But these are the four that are coming up in December. And so we'll just need a list before the December council meeting. So if you know already that you're good to go, just a verbal yes is great. And then we'll reach out to anyone who wasn't here.
great. So
Do you
send
need
to
that
Ashley.
in writing, or, because I plan to continue, but would you rather have it in as
Yes,
an email?
send an email to Ashley,
Okay.
please.
Oh, sure. That would be great.
All right.
Great.
I can't believe it's been 2 years. Good gracious.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a little, people join in the middle of a session, so it's not like everyone's always done their full 2 when they come up, but just good to keep everybody on
No,
a schedule.
he meant it felt like forever.
So you've been for almost for 2.5, Dawn. You've been
2.5?
on here a while.
So the rules, do you want
So we've got 5 minutes. How about this? We take 4 minutes to brainstorm what we might think would be some good rules for Parks Commission. And then we'll come at our next meeting and we'll discuss what, if people have other ideas. I love Victoria named one of my favorites, which is a time when people come to speak, have a limited response time.
On our part? In other words,
No, just the
you're talking when somebody
just when
comes.
the public comes to make a comment on something.
Okay, 3 minutes is not enough, though. That's.
You'd be surprised.
I
People
think
get
3
very
minutes is
good
plenty.
at, and they can be granted more time, but
Okay.
it's to
Okay.
we only meet for an hour. That would already be, whatever percent of our time.
Okay.
And you can make another proposal next week. We won't, but we'll vote on this all together.
Okay.
So,
I like the rules that, sorry for interrupting, but you had brought this up, that if a park commission member brings an item to an agenda, that they go to the city council or send in a written explanation of the position of the commission. So therefore, the voice of the commission is being represented at city council meetings.
I think that's a good idea.
mhm.
But we would, will that need a motion and a second?
This is just,
we're just making
we're just
a list of
brainstorming.
Okay,
brainstorming.
okay.
We're not gonna vote on anything
Yeah.
today.
Got it, got it.
With Chad and Lori, Parkson's representative.
I do like Victoria's comment about, on a quarterly basis, possibly somebody from Park Commission, and you didn't say quarterly, but I'm just throwing it out there, attend RCDC and
Oh,
just
yeah,
share with what we've been discussing on a quarterly basis.
CDC liaison.
And so that way we've got a voice there.
Mhm.
I would like to see I have a vision of the park, which is never gonna happen, but it's like a little Zilker Park, right in the middle of Rollingwood on our 12 acres.
Mhm.
And it's got clusters of trees paid for by people who want to volunteer or who want to acknowledge somebody that is important to them, and got a lot of seating and shade and beautiful, like butterfly gardens, many of those around. I like the idea of mission statements. If you can generate such a thing. It's tricky because the park it serves baseball, it serves vendors that use the park, it serves the community, it serves the police, it's this. My goal when I joined the Park Commission was to try to support it becoming a community park or working like a community park. The fields are empty most of the time. It's not attractive as a park. Only limited attractiveness as a park.
So maybe we should plant trees in them.
I feel real strongly about that. That's
Oh.
I think middle of field 1.
So this is,
there a
the
motion?
agenda item is discussion, calls to action, creating rules for the park commission. So
Yeah.
what is there something about our process or keeping that at top of
You
mind?
know what?
or-
I looked at the video of last month's meeting, and you said what would make sense maybe from time to time is for park commission and city council to walk the grounds.
Oh, yeah.
I think when you take something that the park commission wants to do and we condense it into a kind of a proposal, and then it goes to city council, then there's a learning curve that may or may not happen. And I think I don't know, it could be once a year or maybe twice a year, but I think for the advisory board and the executive group to actually see what we got here, they might go, goodness gracious, that is a big deal, which comes across a lot more strongly than something written on a sheet of paper.
So possibly a joint parks and council meeting work session once annually?
At
Oh, I
least,
like
yes.
that, a work session. And I don't know if you wanna put it on there, but the quarterly walkthroughs with the follow-up at the next meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Might as well put that on
Yep.
there.
Yeah, it sounds like we need processes that can actually be consistently executed,
Yeah.
especially if there's gonna be changeover or transition between one commission member and another. So having
Yeah.
these types of things established would probably help in that staff as well as new commission members coming in. Because, Victoria, there's a lot of things that you're kind of, as the newest member, uncertain of.
Yeah, training,
Yeah,
like sort of this is
Oh,
this
yeah.
is how you
Yeah.
get.
It's better not to come home from vacation and suddenly be on a commission.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they do when you're gone.
That's right, who's not here?
Well, I also think too, when a vacancy comes out, and this was something I brought to council maybe a year ago, is that it should be communicated to residents throughout Rollingwood and not simply just of word of mouth. If I know I'm resigning and I'm gonna go to my next door neighbor who's like-minded like me, or maybe not like-minded like me, I think that this commission, and maybe all commissions should have, where it's announced to residents so that there is a vacancy coming up, and that give a certain amount of time to be able to respond before council assigns somebody, because they might have somebody's application in there. It might be one person, so by default, that person, not saying anything right
No,
or
no,
wrong,
I know
but
what
I
you
think
mean.
that there should
Yeah.
be a more transparent process that is communicated to the residents of Rollingwood.
Well, if we still had the Westlake Picayune.
Yeah. So it is 1:00.
Okay.
Sounds like we got a lot of good ideas. They're on tape. We'll have them in the minutes. And do we have a motion to?
Motion to resign. Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn. Yes.
I'll second that.
Great. Motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Great. Thank you guys.
Thank
Save
you.
that one for later.
Didn't you